Okay, my name is Farinell, and we're talking about the three big projects up through midterm in the Fundamentals of Curriculum Development 1 class. So, this is an optional live class. This is the third that we've had this semester. But I'll do a little bit of review, but then I'll bring us up to where we are now. I think this is session 5 coming up. And so we'll talk about what you did for the first project, project 2 that you're doing for this session, and project 3. So let's tie those together. Look back at session 2. Session 2, I think, was your first 10-point post.
Yes.
So most of you used something from Blackboard, especially if you weren't used to doing 10-point postings for me. I told you just to use any idea from Blackboard that you liked and to do a 10-point posting. And then session 3, for session 3, this is Fundamentals of Curriculum Development 1. And for session 2, session 1, you did your self-intro, right?
Yes.
For session 2, you did your first 10-point format. Posting. Even though I'd already given you 10 points for that short 3-paragraph essay that you did introducing yourself. The second 10-point posting was the first one that you actually used the 10-point format. So make sure that you are following 10-point format. If you're not getting full 10 points on these, then you're either going to have to add some replies, get some bonus points to beef that up a bit, or go back and add the things you're missing. So remember, number 1 on those, you have an idea and its source. So if it's the textbook, give the page number, the idea, text, page number. If it's from one of my optional live lectures or from a discussion that you have with someone in your school or a website or an article, put it beside that idea, where you got the idea from, maybe a workshop. Then number 2, you're going to give a definition. That could be straight from the source, or it could be in your own words. Number 3, you got to have a second source, an outside source than the original one you got the idea from. So maybe go find a website related to the idea from the textbook or from my lecture. Or if you got it from a website, go talk to somebody in your building about that idea. Then tell how you're going to use it. So number 4 would be why you think it's an interesting idea, how you're really going to use it. And then 5, get creative. Either there you could come up with a fun activity or a discussion point, or if you're a school administration major, be really smart there to tell the standard that you are using that for and a possible test question that you might write to make you remember that idea for the state exam, an essay test question or a multiple choice test question. And so if you're doing that, if you're trying to create a review for the test, for the state test, be nice to the fellow scholars and tell them what the correct answer is, or what you think the right answer is, okay? And then session 3, I'm going by memory, so look at your calendar, correct me if I'm wrong, but session 3 was 3 10-point postings, is that right?
Session 3 is project 1.
Oh, so, okay, thank you for getting me on track. Project 1. Okay, so this was where you actually could either skim through your textbook, survey the textbook, and go through and quickly highlight 20 ideas in there that you think you're really going to want to pay attention to as you go through the textbook. Or you could talk to your administrator and maybe some of your fellow scholars in class and some of your fellow educators at your school building and say, what are 20 curriculum ideas that would really help us at our school that are really important? And so I ask you to think of that, those 20 resources, list and annotated. Each one has to be annotated. That means you make a comment about what you like about each of those things. So the 20 resources, and an annotated resource list with 20 items. So I want you to divide that into things that are part of what we call the intended curriculum. The intended curriculum are those things that either you intend to teach, or that the state tells you that you are supposed to teach, or that your district tells you that you're supposed to teach. You know, you can get 3 or 4 ideas there from all of those sources. Things that come from the state, things that come from your district, things that come from your own intentions, things that come from the textbook perhaps. And then the things that you actually, that affect you in your plan. So your planned curriculum are things that you actually write up in your plan. So what are things that you cover there? And then some ideas that you would use for what's actually taught. What are some of the tricks of the trade that you have found that you actually use when teaching? Okay, so back here you might talk about lesson planning format, things that you've learned about planning, how you could use planning to help a weak or a beginning teacher, how to improve your teaching through planning. But here, when you're actually teaching, what are things that you do there? And then the tested curriculum. How much do state tests affect what you teach? How do you help your students be ready for test-taking skills? Things of that sort. And then finally, the lifelong or utilized curriculum. So, and it doesn't have to be exactly 4 each. You might have only 3 here and maybe 5 here. But the used curriculum would be those things that actually will carry over to the students' lives beyond this school year and beyond the state test. Things that they will use next year and the following year, maybe when they're adults. So, things like character building and service learning, things of that sort. Okay? Things that make them better family members, better community members that affect them over their entire lives. So, that's how you come up with your annotated resource list. Session 4. Look at your outline. That should be 3 10-point postings, I hope.
Yes.
And I would really look, if you want to really work smart, I would look at 3 ideas that will support the big projects that are coming up later. So look at session 5. Session 5 is project number 2. And project number 2 is how to do a needs assessment, or assessing the strengths and the weaknesses of your master's program. So you might use 3 interviews of interviewing people who've gone through the same master's program recently, have completed it, or are at the last semester of the master's program you're doing. You might actually go and look at, say, the NCATE study, or the self-analysis that the university has to do of that program, and look at what the strengths and weaknesses were. You might want to talk to some people that are actually out in the field using things from that program. So you might at least make 1 or 2 or maybe all 3 of these 10-point postings things that you can use for project number 2. So the strengths and weaknesses of your master's program, or if you're doing certificate only, of your certificate only program. Then session number 6, look at your calendar. Session number 6, 3 10-point postings again.
Yes.
3 10-point postings. And once again, I would look up some things that would help me with future sessions. For example, session number 7, you have to do a chart, such as a Gantt, charting out your master's or your certificate program have a separate live session actually showing you where we worked on one using Excels, do we not? Is there one? Did you look and see? There's one for the class. But if you go look up, say, Gantt charts, how to do a Gantt chart using Excels, you can use the one that we have for you in our videos for this class as a source, and then you can go online and see if you can find maybe some that are even better, that are done, that are maybe clearer and easier to follow. Or you might find some articles about that. So use these 10-point postings wisely to build toward future projects. Look up things on service learning for your service learning project, things of that sort. So that gets us up through the 3 big projects. This is project number 3 right here. And I think I've covered that. Any questions? Okay, does that get you up to date?
It does.
Okay, very good.